So, welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. Today should be 204. Still boggles my mind. This has been going on for so many years now. I guess four years roughly. If we do 50 some episodes a year, so that would be 4+ years. And I'm humbled that I get this inspiration every single time to just share. Really, I'm a transmitter. I open my mouth and whatever comes out comes out. It's none of it is planned, except for maybe a couple of minutes ahead of time, or maybe sometimes I do get the information when I feel that a source is being generous with me. I get the information earlier in the morning, so I have a general idea, like where am I going in the book. And as usual, today we are going to, we're going to continue what we started last week, but then we're going to jump to a lesson as well, because it's really fascinating being in the US. And this specific week is the week that we celebrate 4th of July. And today is July the 2nd. So America is, or not America, the USA, the United States of America, is celebrating our independence from the motherland, the British. However, A Course in Miracles addresses independence differently. It addresses our declaration of independence internally. We need to become independent of our ego. We need to declare, I am not following what you are telling me anymore. Just as our founding fathers were very courageous. I mean, look at where the frequency of courage. The frequency of courage is way up there. So you gotta be above the guilt and the shame and the revenge and those realms of judgment and fear. You got to be beyond that, because first you have to get to the level of pride, the frequency of pride. And of course, this chart comes from Dr. David Hawkins, and I believe it was his purpose in this incarnation to awaken at a very young age. He began to remember around 12 years old. If I've got it correctly, I may be off on a few details, but that's inconsequential. He was outside and basically experienced almost freezing to death when he was around, I think it was around 12, maybe 13, 14. Like I said, the details is not the point of the story, but he, in that moment of almost freezing to death, had a near-death experience and began to remember things that were absolutely life-changing for him. And as he was remembering things, something shifted in him, and he got to the place that, hey, Richard, he got to the place where he recognized that there were things that he knew that allowed him to awaken, talking about David Hawkins. And he became he had a PhD, I think, in psychology or psychiatry, I can't remember which. But the thing that he focused on the most was kinesiology, which was to use the body as a mechanism to tell us if we're telling the truth or speaking a lie. Through kinesiology, he could feel the tension, because the body gets tight when we're telling a lie. The body is at ease and at peace when it is telling the truth. And the person who goes to see a kinesiologist and has an assessment done. I used to have a chiropractor in Georgia that he did chiropractic and used kinesiology to ask the body, was this adjustment what was needed? To ask it questions about where was my body off. He ended up passing away, and so I ended up going to see a different chiropractor after that. So I never had, again, somebody who did kinesiology like that chiropractor did. But Dr. David Hawkins, that was his field of study. The body is communicating with us. Are we listening? And in that field that he was in, of course, like I do, like all teachers of truth, that all of us who open up, I shouldn't say teachers, all of us who open up to the truth, we receive messages. We receive, some people call it downloads. I call them transmissions, whatever you want to call it. We get information. And if it's part of your purpose to share this with the world, you do. And we all have, a piece of the puzzle that we offer. And I would say mine is through the power of awareness work that is so closely related to A Course in Miracles, and that's what I consider myself an expert in. And so that's what I've taught for so long, is the power of awareness and self-awareness in my online course. And Dr. David Hawkins did a chart to show that as we raise our consciousness, as we are more aligned to the truth of who we are, we are going to go through specific stages. These are our levels of emotion, levels of maturity, is what I like to think of it as. When we're anger and fear and in a state of powerlessness, we are very immature, emotionally immature, because we don't know who we are. So we are very protective. We are in a state of panic, of fear, like a little child, like a little animal that is feeling threatened. So we have to do the work to train our mind to know truth, to remember truth, to access truth. And at some point, we have to come to a place of courage. I believe that our founding fathers, all of them, achieved a level of courage where they were willing to sacrifice everything that they had, including their lives, to bring about the founding of a country that could declare its independence from the crown, from the British rule. And 250 years ago, this was established, or maybe might have been more than that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's somewhere around there. And we are in the midst of celebrating this week the declaration of that independence. And what is so beautiful to me, and I have done other transmissions around this when it was first made clear to me, our founding fathers, some of them were very connected to source. As a matter of fact, you can see that connection in some of the documents that they wrote when they wrote that all men, meaning men and women at the time, that's what they call, men were the ones who were acknowledged, but men and women are created equal, endowed by our creator with the same inalienable rights to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. I've done a class, or actually several of these, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. But if you look at life, if you look at liberty, and you look at happiness, that is exactly what A Course in Miracles wants us to understand. Life, we have eternal life. We have liberty. We have free will. We can choose to believe whatever we want to believe. And our purpose, according to the Course, is to be happy. So our founding fathers, 250 years ago, tapped into that is what has been given to every single one of us. We were created equal, endowed with the same inalienable rights. However, if we don't train our mind to think with God, our mind will be trained by others to think with the ego. And the ego is always selfish. So if our mind is trained to think with the ego, it is trained by somebody whose ego is operating at a place of selfishness. If they have risen to positions of power, be it in the church, be it in the government, be it in the medical establishment, in the education system, it doesn't matter what system, anybody who raises to a position of power, who is listening more to their ego than to God, you can tell the difference. One is doing things that are self-serving. One who listens to God is doing things for the greater good. And you can hear in their messages, in their writings, if what they're doing is in service to the greater good or in service to self. I believe that our founding fathers, when they wrote those statements, or that specific statement that all men are created equal, all humans are created equal in our Bill of Rights, that was channeled. That was a download, whatever you want to call it, a transmission. Could they live up to that at that time? Well, probably not, since a lot of them had slaves. A lot of them, probably were based on the stress that they were in, were drinking, were some had affairs. So their minds were not fully trained to be strictly aligned with God's will. They went. Some of them went to war. Some of them were defending each other. Some of them killed other people. So the mind at that time, and we got to give them grace, because at that time, some of the things that they did were normal in that time frame, but their minds could not have been fully trained to align with God. Otherwise, they would not have done those things. They would have risen above, like Jesus did 2,000 plus years ago, risen above what was normal and acceptable in society, and strictly lived from a place of pure love. But they did transmit that truth that was put into our founding documents, that till this day should be the guiding pillars of how we do things in this country. If we are going to go by, the justice system, it should be according to that. All of us are equal. We don't need special rights for the gays or the blacks or the whites or the women or the, too tall people, too short people. Nobody should get any special rights, because we all have been endowed with the same inalienable rights. But when the government is utilizing fear, because they're operating from service to self ego, they do all these special relationships, the special trans people, the special this people, the special poor people, white people, black, whatever it is. They create these special groups to have us feel this sense of disempowerment. Oh, the poor victims, we got to protect them. Well, if we just followed that all of us are equal, there would be nobody needs special treatment. We would be utilizing every aspect of the justice system to ensure everybody's rights. We wouldn't be pitted against each other. We would be united under the recognition that everybody's rights matter. So, as we tie that 4th of July, Declaration of Independence, what the Course is teaching us, where we kind of left off last week, where I was guided to take us this week into lesson 31, it's all gonna make sense by the end of this transmission. So last week, we started in on chapter 23 in the text. The title of that chapter is The War Against Yourself. The Course, to me, throughout the text, it lays out the journey that we all have to go through. It lets us know that we are divine beings, as Dr. Hawkins let us know through his levels of consciousness. I like to put it in a spiral form, which is why I laid it out that way. We come from the all-knowing source, and through lifetimes, we spiral down little by little by little by little, to the point that we are have so forgotten the truth of who we are, that we enter the realms of powerlessness. From there, we hit bottom, and from the bottom, we start the ascension, if we want to. You don't have to leave the bottom if you don't want to. It's like in alcoholics, drug addicts. You do not have to leave bottom. You can stay there. Lifetime after lifetime, you can come back in and play it out at that frequency if you want to. However, those that are choosing to awaken, those who are open to these kinds of messages, to channeled information, who are devouring books that were written by Buddha or Lao Tzu or Plato, who are opening their minds up to understanding that there is way more going on here than we've been led to believe that there is, are recognizing the truth that is inherent in everything. Specifically, those who study the teachings of Jesus, whatever form you get them in. Course in Miracles, whether it's through channeled information, other channeled information, because the Course is channeled, or maybe through even in the Bible. you study the gospels that were left out of the Bible, and you go down that rabbit hole. That was one of the rabbit holes that I went through when I first started questioning hell. I went down the rabbit hole of studying the Gospel of Thomas, all of the gospels that were discovered in the Nag Hammadi caves in Egypt. I also studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, other documents that were found. I studied I think it was called the Gospel of Q, one that was not specifically written, but it was mentioned by other people. So I went down that rabbit hole and I began my relationship with Jesus. That's when I began to understand, oh my gosh, the Jesus that I grew up with in the church is not the same Jesus that these gospels that were left out of the Bible spoke about. And when I understood that the gospels that were left out of the Bible were left out deliberately, ordered to be destroyed, but some people at the time hid them, and they hid them in these caves. They hid them in different places. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found somewhere else. So this information that Jesus was giving us was the same thing. You are all one with God. You're all created equal. Happiness should be your experience because God loves you. And every one of us is equal, but you have free will. You can choose to believe these things or not. And Jesus taught that. And so did, 2,000 years later, our founding fathers put that in their documents. And as we are studying in A Course in Miracles, it tells us the same thing. Hello, Miss Janie. So as we look at all of this from that perspective, what is the common thread? We will see that there is a loving creator we have to cultivate a relationship with. The Course in Miracles is set up to help us understand how to move out of the conditioning of the mind. Because if you are born into a family that is telling you lies, no matter how loving they are, you're going to believe those lies as the truth of life. You're going to think that that is the ultimate truth. Then you go to school, you go to college, you're out in the world following the political rules. You're going to believe that all of this is true. Course in Miracles takes us on a journey to question everything until we come to the place that we are actually aligned with truth because it has been activated in us, it has been remembered, and that's what we operate from. Until we get to that place that we are certain that we trust what the Course is saying, that is the truth because we have felt it, it gives us these steps. In chapter 23, the war against yourself is the war that we are all working through. And it is a war between two voices. And that's what this chart is about. The voice of the ego, you still have spirit in there. God's still talking to you, but you don't listen to it as much because the dark side, the ego side is so loud. Then you have an awakening and you begin to undo those beliefs, those lies, and you begin to realize you really are a divine being having a human experience. Ego is in there, but it doesn't run the show. It becomes, you send it to the back seat. It's a back seat. It's not even a backseat driver. It's just in the back seat. You utilize your mind in the game of separation to navigate the things that are in this world, but you're not of the world because you know the truth of who you are. So our founding fathers gave us that information. We're all equal, all created equal, endowed with the same inalienable rights. Course in Miracles teaches us how to remember those inalienable rights and how to get to the place of peace and total complete declaration of independence is you have to know you're eternal. Because once you know you're eternal, you begin the process of not sweating the small stuff. Like our founding fathers, you're willing to die for the truth because you're not attached to the body. Jesus did that for us over 2,000 years ago. He said, okay, you can crucify me. I'm not even going to fight you guys because I'm not a body. So when you get to the place that you realize that you're not a body, sacrificing your body for the ultimate truth becomes an easy thing to do. And again, our founding fathers, most of them lost their lives in tragic, tragic ways because they were going against the establishment by saying we're declaring independence from the government, which was, the crown, the British crown. Jesus he wasn't fighting. He was a much higher level of consciousness. I would say our founding fathers had courage, but Jesus was at the highest frequency. So he was like, I'm not going to fight you people. The truth is going to get out. And because he knew he was eternal, he wasn't concerned if it took us 100 years, 2,000 years, 20,000 years. Jesus knew eventually we will remember. Our founding fathers, they were at a different level of consciousness, were willing to fight for the truth, still giving us an example of what one who is no longer afraid of death will do. They will defend the truth no matter what. So inside of chapter 23, the war against yourself, we were looking at this was section number 4. The title of section number 4 is called Above the Battleground. If we have the same book, my book is page 496. So above the battleground, we all have to learn to move above the battleground, because that is where you see the voice of the ego and the voice of God. And I'm not going to say fighting each other, because God doesn't fight. God doesn't defend. God is speaking to us, but it becomes a very, very low voice. You can hardly hear it because of the noise of the ego. So you got to learn to train your mind to go above that and listen to what's the ego telling me, what is God saying. So it last week we only got through sentence number 8. So today we're going to start with sentence number 9, but I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate some of the pieces ahead of it so that all this makes sense. So don't remain in conflict, for there is no war without attack. Basically letting us know that just as we've been trained to war against the British Crown or to war against the countries in the Middle East, there's always somebody defending, somebody attacking. So don't remain in conflict, for there is no war without attack, meaning just acknowledge, get out of being in conflict with these two voices and acknowledge there is only one that does the attacking and the defending, and there is one that is consistent. Train your mind to observe that. You know, there are teachings like we have done in a study group, The Untethered Soul, that helps us understand that we had experiences, we have had beliefs and things that we have held on to, and they create voices in our head. And those voices in our head are the ones that are in conflict. Learn to listen to that voice. A simple example. Oh, I want to lose some weight. Oh, but I don't want to stop, I don't want to give up my candy and my French fries and my whatever. So you want to lose weight, but you don't want to give up the things that make you gain weight. That's a conflict. You want to, another simple example, you want to get out of a relationship, but you don't want to upset the apple cart. Well, what if you don't find anybody better? Or what if, you give up that relationship? You may give up the security, the finances, or whatever, but you don't want to be in that relationship. Ego is always in conflict. Ego always is chasing something better, but afraid if it turns out worse. That is classic ego, always in conflict, defending, attacking. And then there is the voice of God that is consistent. The Holy Spirit speaks to us consistently, does not alter, because there's nothing that is in conflict with. So it goes on to say, and I'm going to just highlight a few words. So don't try and follow exactly with me, because I'm not going to do that. I'm taking things from sentences, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So God remains the only place of safety. Just pulling out from sentence 2 and 3. Sentence 4, in him is no attack, and no illusion in any form stalks heaven. So when you come to know the voice for God, it is very consistent, very clear. There is zero attack in God's voice. The ego constantly battling. Heaven is wholly true. And in sentence 6, in the middle of it, it says, what is all the same cannot conflict. So we are learning, we're training our mind. What is God that is consistent? What is the ego that always is willing to attack? So we're getting above the battleground of the ego. That is what we're moving above. So we can watch the ego do what it does and choose not to listen. And this is not easy to do, because you're choosing to override your own beliefs. Ultimately, the conflict of the ego is because you believe, oh, I don't want to be in this relationship, but I'm scared to go out on my own. You believe both voices. You think that both of them are accurate. I don't want to be here and I'm scared. And they are to the ego. But God says, if you had faith, you would trust that everything's going to be okay. God, one of your purposes is to be happy, but you also have free will. You have the free will to listen to the desire from your heart, which would be maybe to move on from that relationship, or your heart may be telling you, stop complaining. This you love this person. Get back to the love that is in this relationship. But we cannot listen to the ego while to God while we're distracted with the conflicts of the ego, because they're very seductive. They make you feel righteous. And then we start talking to everybody about them, and of course, they take on a life of their own. So let's go to sentence number 9. Let's see. Well, let me read sentence number 8 just so we can tie it to number 9. But you are asked to realize the form it takes conceals the same intent, because the ego is always attempting to attack, and it's a wish for to murder. It wants to kill the other person. It wants to kill the situation. It wants to win over whatever is in conflict with. So sentence 9 says, and it is this you fear and not the form. What is not love is murder. What is not loving must be an attack. Every illusion is an assault on truth, and everyone does violence to the idea of love because it seems to be of equal truth. Bottom line is that we are comfortable hurting ourselves and others with our attack thoughts. In some cases, like our founding fathers knew that they would have to defend this land, they would have to defend the Constitution, they would have to defend the Bill of Rights and go into attack that would leave people dead. And you obviously we have to call that murder, because they're taking the life of another. But love doesn't do that. The voice of God that is loving doesn't need to do that. Jesus showed us we don't need to defend. We don't need to go and attack the people who crucified him. He didn't need to do that, because the truth is the truth is the truth. And if you know that you are in an illusion, meaning you know that all of this is made up in the mind of God, and you know you're safe in the mind of God, which is where our trust and our faithfulness is all about, you know you are safe in the mind of God. You don't need to attack a brother or a sister to prove your point. The ego, on the other hand, must attack to prove itself right, and in the attacking, even to go as far as murder, to prove them wrong. Well, they're dead. They're dead. I won. So we have to understand this battle that is raging inside of us is a battle that we need to wake up from. If we don't wake up to the battle in our head, we cannot wake up from the battle in our head. This is why the training is so specific and so deliberate, and it takes us through so many different stages as we unwind our mind from the tightness and the total constraint that we have placed our mind in. We are thinking create so much stress because we are looking at everything through the lens of conflict. But when you unwind your mind, when you move to the places that you really can see the bigger picture, you have widened back and you can see what's going on. You can see the battle in your head. Now you become the observer. You become the presence that is aware of your options. As you become aware of your options, no one in their right mind is going to choose conflict. We only choose conflict when we're in the wrong mind, and the Course teaches us that. So it's all about understanding what is true and what is not true. So what is not love is murder. So if we are not loving anybody or ourselves, specifically ourselves, then our mind is going to justify putting them down, thinking that we're better than them. That's the same as murder, because an attack on a body is no different than an attack in our mind about their character. They are both the same, exactly the same. So we are being told that what is not loving must be an attack. If you are a serious student of the course, you do what you were told in the instruction. Do not interpret what it is said, simply apply it. If you apply what is not loving must be an attack, and you sit back and you observe the thoughts that you have about yourself and others, I'm not good enough, that's an attack. That's like murdering yourself. It's the same energy, it's the same frequency. If you have a thought about somebody else, oh, that terrible person, they committed a crime, they should be put to death. That's murder. We're committing murder. We're attacking a child of God. But we can do this because we have been endowed with the same inalienable rights of life, liberty. We have liberty. We have the free will to decide to experience whatever we want to experience. If we want to think bad things about that person, then so be it. We need to be righteous. We will have those thoughts, but it puts us in the frequency of murder. The frequency of murder is down here. It is so far from love that it is as far as you can go when you are dead inside because you've attacked yourself so much. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. I'm not special enough. I'm not wanted. I'm not smart enough. Those are all attack thoughts. Those are all, we've been murdering ourselves. We're operating in such fear and such smallness that, well, it seems normal. And it seems normal because we have been indoctrinated to think that it is okay. We pick two football teams. One's going to destroy the other. And we cheer and we chant, yeah, get them, whatever. We do the same thing in politics. There's one side and the other side, the donkeys and the elephants. So we attack each other and we think that that is justified. We stand in these debates and put each other down. That's normal because it has been normalized. So we have been taught that the whites and against the blacks and the women against the men and the trans against the straight or gay against the straight. We have been conditioned into attacking one another as somehow okay. So we have all of these events. Sports has turned into competition, into egoic competition. It's not friendly competition about, who's better skilled. It is truly about who's got the most money to establish a marketing campaign to destroy the other team in the media and then destroy them on the battlefield on the sports platform wherever they happen to be. So our mind has been trained into picking a side, and that has been done deliberately because when we know who we are as God created us, we won't participate in anything that is divisive. We couldn't because we would love everybody. If you love everybody, you don't pick sides because you know that to pick a side is to enter into the realm of the ego and enter into a battle. When you free yourself from the battle and you're above the battleground, you don't do that. You don't pick sides, but you do become aware you're in this world. So we got sports teams and we got politics. You're in the world. You get it, but you're not of it, meaning that you make your decisions based on frequency. You participate in the games, you may watch the sports, but you're not going to go into this story about wishing this team destroys the other team. That's just not part of what you're going to be participating in. That's not the frequency you're going to be putting out because that's not the frequency you're letting in. So now we got to move from here to lesson 31. And I say we have to go there because that's what I was told we had to do today. And I try to obey as much as possible. So in lesson 31, I am not a victim of the world I see. This to me is one of the most important lessons in the course. If we don't get this, we cannot rise above the battleground because it states very clearly in the statement, it's a statement of truth. Every single headline, every lesson is a statement of truth. Again, if you're a serious student of the course, you take this to heart. Today's idea is the introduction to your declaration of release. Again, the idea should be applied to both the world you see without and the world you see within. So we're releasing ourselves from the outer world. We're saying, outer world, you're no longer programming me. I am not buying into your divisiveness. All you people who we've given power to or who've taken power from others, if you listen to your ego, I'm declaring independence from you. I am not going to listen to what you say. I'm not going to hate my brother. I'm not going to make this group special, and I'm not going to make that group less. I am not participating in that because internally, I'm not listening to the voice of ego that is in conflict. I'm choosing not to judge people, to judge myself. So I'm not going to judge others outside of me. This declaration of release is you accepting that you're not a victim of what you're seeing. You are here choosing to have this experience. Why? Because you have liberty. You have free will to experience separation. But when you train your mind, you experience the separation as a happy dream. You can coexist with the separation, but not buy into it, not let it run your life. So then he goes on to say that in applying the idea, we will use a form of practice which will be used more and more with changes as indicated. So generally speaking, and this is more the instructions of how to apply this idea. Generally speaking, the form includes two aspects, one in which you apply the idea on a more sustained basis and the other consisting of a frequent application of the idea throughout the day. Again, it's instructions on how to use this lesson. So I'm not going to spend time there. The remainder of, or most of paragraph 2, it's breaking down the longer practice periods and the shorter practice periods. Just go down to sentence number 5 in paragraph 2. You will escape from both together, for the inner is the same as the outer. In this lesson, we are told what is happening inside is the exact same thing as what's happening outside, which is why in the academy, we focus on one of our classes is looking at events, and we look at the events outside and see how they reflect to what happens inside. And let me tell you, when you begin to do that, it is powerful because then you begin to forgive yourself for what you have done to yourself. How can you not then forgive those who did it not knowing what they were doing because they're under the trance of the ego? They're believing the battle to be real. We have to step away from the battle to see that it is not real. But we have to make that choice consciously. Why? Because we have free will. We have life, liberty, and happiness. Life means you're eternal. Once you accept that you're eternal, then you can begin to do this work of sorting out while you're in a state of separation. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? So if you want to be happy, you also want peace. So then you use your free will to turn it in and look at what's going on inside and then see that the inner and the outer are the same. Once you get that your judgments, self-judgments are a reflection of how easy it is to judge others, something shifts within and you stop doing that. So then let's go down to paragraph number 3. As you survey your inner world, merely let whatever thoughts cross your mind come into your awareness, each to be considered for a moment and then replaced by the next. Try not to establish any kind of hierarchy among them. So it's telling us, I want you to focus on the word awareness, thoughts and awareness. So we're going to let all the thoughts come into our awareness. Awareness is what's awakening. We're waking up to become aware, self-aware, to be aware of the thinking. We're no longer reacting to our thoughts. We're observing our thoughts so we can respond to them. So we're taking the thoughts and we're becoming aware of the thoughts. And then it says, don't establish hierarchy. There's not one that's better than the other. There's not one that is higher than the other. Every thought that we have, it doesn't matter what they are, can be equally disturbing to our peace of mind. So we don't want the thoughts that make us, oh, happy. This is, I want to be out of this relationship and then I'll be happy. Or, oh, I can't leave this relationship because, I'm safe here. One's not better than the other. Leaving is not better than staying here because you're afraid. They both have to be equally disturbing to your peace of mind. So, because we don't want to listen to the ego, we don't want to hear what the ego has to say. I mean, we want to hear it so we can become aware of it. We want to train our mind to listen to what God has to say, which is always going to be the pursuit of happiness. What will make you happy? If you want out of the relationship, you will do whatever it takes, but not listening to the ego's fears. The ego's going to tell you, oh, you'll never find somebody else. You'll end up alone, or you'll lose your security. When you listen to God, that doesn't matter. Do you think Jesus was listening to the voice of the ego? Oh, don't upset the Jewish people. Don't upset the Pharisees. They're going to come and crucify you. That you're going to lose your safety. You're going to lose your body. Jesus didn't listen to the ego. And his ego, I'm sure, was talking to him. But when you are trained to listen to the voice for God, whatever the ego says sounds like wah, wah, wah. You don't listen to that. It might be there, but it doesn't run your life because you sent it to the back seat. So then I'm not going to read the rest of that paragraph because it's really how to deal with those thoughts. Let's go to the fourth, paragraph number 4. We're going to go to the second sentence because the first sentence is still about how to proceed that day. Sentence number 2, remind yourself when you state, I am not a victim of the world I see, remind yourself that you are making a declaration of independence in the name of your own freedom. And in your freedom lies the freedom of the world. This is why the inner and the outer are the same. We have to get clear that if you want peace inside, you must give peace to the external world. You cannot be attacking the outer world if you want to feel peace inside, because when you attack, your ego gets you all wound up, and now you're in a state of adrenaline, and your body's going to go into tightness and tension and feeling anger. So to release the outer world comes after you have released yourself from being under the illusion that your ego knows better than you, or in this case, knows better than God. So we're training our mind to listen to these voices so that we can make a rational, reasonable choice. Do you know where reason sits on the chart? Up here. Reason means an understanding of your mind where you are thinking with God. Reason up there. The ego's logic, well, I should protect myself because, they might hurt me. The ego's logic is something that is just always justifies attack and defense. We got to move away from the ego's logic because it's always in conflict. And when you begin to observe it, you begin to see the insanity of it. It's crazy. Ego is nuts. If you want clarity, you need to listen to one voice that is not conflicted. And it is the voice of love that acknowledges you have eternal life. You have the life that our founding father said is one of our inalienable rights. You have eternal life. Stop trying to defend your body. You have liberty, free will to choose what you want to believe. And you have the ability to experience happiness, true happiness, which is never dependent on anybody else. You don't need another person to be happy. You don't need the government to change to be happy. It's a happiness that is found within when you tap into the highest frequencies within yourself. Happiness, according to the Course, is the same as joy. It's not something we're chasing. It's something we're acknowledging is our birthright. Inalienable rights given to us by our Creator. Whether you read it in the founding documents or you read it in A Course in Miracles, it doesn't matter. Truth is truth is truth. Jesus told us that 2,000 years ago. You and the Father are one. You have eternal life. Follow me. I am the way. I am the way, the life, and the liberty. Jesus told us this, but we didn't listen to what he was saying because what he said was so corrupted, utilized by those who understood we need to control these people so we can get them to do what we need them to do. After all, if you move into positions of power and money is what runs your life, because, money is not evil. It's the love of money that is what creates the evil side of things. And if we have people who are listening to their ego, and most everybody in this world listens to the ego, And these people rise to positions of power, and the reason they do is because they know how to pit themselves against the opponent so that people will pick one side. It used to be that politics, you would have like 60% one side, 40% the other. Now it's pretty 50-50 because each party knows how to get the other side riled up. When you go to a football game, it's pretty much 50-50 because each party, each group, each team knows how to get their people riled up by telling you how bad the other side is. That's how you can tell the ego. It always has to put somebody down to put itself up, make itself above the others. Let's look at sentence number 5. The idea for today is also particularly useful. It's also a particularly useful one to use as a response to any form of temptation that may arise. It is a declaration that you will not yield to it and put yourself in bondage. This is freedom. When a thought arises, I'm better than, I'm less than, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough. This is when the ego's tempting you to listen to it, to side with it, which means don't listen to God. This is when you declare, you know what? I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm certainly not a victim of the voice in my head. I have been given life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have eternal life. I don't need to be worried about losing my life for the truth that I believe in. This makes you courageous. You have to have the ability to side with God to have courage. There's no other way around it. You have to side with freedom to have courage. Those two things go together. Anybody who is in fear is going to avoid at all costs putting their lives in danger because they're afraid. But once you know that freedom is more important than anything, giving your life for it, there's no concern about that because you understand your eternalness. There is a mission way bigger than you. Ego is always, oh, I got to protect me. God is about, we are going to take care of the greater good. And it doesn't matter what we sacrifice in this lifetime because it's not really a sacrifice if you're eternal, is it? So the Course in Miracles is really clear. We must move above the battleground. We must see the conflict in our mind. We must see the ego's shenanigans. Everything the ego says can be put into two columns. The things that it wants and the things that it doesn't, it wants to avoid. I want to be skinny, but I don't want to give up French fries. I want to be, fit, but I don't want to wake up early and go to the gym. That's the ego talking. You will never get what you want when you listen to the ego because it dangles the carrot in front of you, but you're never going to reach it. When you listen to God, doing whatever it takes, you find the courage. I want to get fit. I want to have a strong body vessel. It's temporary. Let me make the best of it. I got to get up at 5 o'clock. Okay, then I do it. There is no loss. There is absolutely nothing that you are going to be battling because your mission is singular and you're going to move in that direction because you understand that it is good for you. You make a decision. This is going to be a healthy thing for me. Well, the ego tells you, yeah, losing weight, of course, is healthy for me, but I'm not going to give up this. It's a conflict, keeps us justifying why we're not going to do the things that we know are better for us. If you look at the world, you look at obesity right now, it is out of control in this world. And the reason it is out of control is because our minds have been trained to believe that it's okay. And not only that, we're going to create special treatment for the larger people. I watched something on a video not too long ago, and there was this person that was super, super large, and they were told that they had to stay within their seat, but they wanted to lift up the arm. And the person next to them said, no, you can't do that because then you're sliding into, your fat is moving into my space. So the airlines, were creating this special thing. You can't discriminate against these larger people. Again, pitting us against each other. Well, instead of that larger person, maybe buying 2 seats so you can have all of it and accepting that's just the cost of the choices that you've made. Well, we're going to make the other person suffer because we got to make this one special. When you see anything that puts one person above the rest, you know it's the ego. It's always going to be the ego. Watch the news. Anything that is happening that pits us against one another is always going to be the ego. We need to practice discernment so we can begin to see how to move above the battleground. And then when you move above the battleground, you can declare your independence from the ego's conflicts. I am not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the voice in my head. I don't have to listen to the tyrant in my head. When we begin to make that declaration and really own it and ground ourselves in it, that is the beginning of liberation. That is the beginning of a freedom that is indescribable because you feel a peace that passes all understanding. You cannot understand it, but you can feel it. This is the result of training our mind. So with that, we're going to conclude. I've got to jump on an interview about conscious grandparenting. So I need to finish early. So I'm glad that this wrapped up the way that it did. But does anybody have any comments or questions around this? Mike, I want a comment from you. What did you think about tying all that together?
I thought you presented it very well as always. I had some comedic thoughts going through my head. You were talking about sports teams, and I think we know each other well enough to know that, I'm from Chicago, and but I've also learned not to take it seriously, except for the Packers. You can go ahead and not like the Packers.
Oh my goodness, you're too funny. I love that. We're in this world and we're here to enjoy it. We're here to have fun with the friendly rivalries. We just need to know when to say when, not only to drinking and drugging, but also to attacking our brothers and sisters because they see things differently. So thank you so much. All right, friends. Some of you I'll see at book club. So you guys take care. Love you all.
Love you. See you tonight.
Bye bye.